Chapter 88 of The Plum in the Golden Vase, Chongzhen edition of Embroidered Portraits. Chen Jingji mourns the golden lotus for the past, and Sister Pang Pang buries her body to Zhongsheng. The poem says, "Although I saw it temporarily in a dream, I realized it was wrong when I woke up. Tossing and turning, unable to sleep, I lean on my clothes alone. It's a sad dawn with strong wind and dim moonlight. The bed is often empty until the end of the day, and the things you think about never come back." It is said that Wu Song killed the woman in Ongpo, robbed the property, and fled to Liangshan, so I won't mention it. Let's say that Wang Chao called Baoji on the street and saw that the front and back doors of Wu Song's house were not open, and Wang's wife's house had been robbed of property. Clothes were scattered everywhere in the house, so they knew that Wu Song had committed murder and robbed property. I opened the front and back doors and saw the bloody corpses lying on the ground. The woman's heart, liver and 5 internal organs were stabbed under the eaves of the back building with a knife. Yinger fell upside down in the room. Asked why, he just cried. The next morning, the report was sent to the county office, and the murderous sword was placed in front of me. The new magistrate of this county also has the surname Li and the double name Chongqi. They are from Zhaoqiang County, Zhending Prefecture, Hebei Province. When he heard about the murder, he was sent to the official's office, and the neighbors Baoji were arrested, as well as Wang Chao and Yinger, the victims of the two families. Look at the street and test it like the law. Before his death, Wu Song was entrusted with killing Pan and Wang Po because he was angry and had drunk wine. They folded the document and entrusted him to the local security guard to bury and guard him. After posting the notice, people were sent from 4 compartments to follow him and find the offender Wu Song. Anyone who made the first report would be rewarded 50 taels of silver by the official. Zhang Sheng and Lian from the garrison went to Wang Po's house with 100 taels of silver. They saw that Wang Po and his wife had been killed by Wu Song. The county sent people to do an autopsy and arrest the murderer. The two reported back to the mansion. When Chen Mai heard that the woman was dead, she cried for 2 or 3 days and refused to eat or drink. He was panicked and guarded, so he asked the man who was playing tricks in front of the door to come in and watch the tricks with him, but he didn't like it. Riju sent Zhang Sheng and Li in to inquire, seize Wu Song's culprit, and report it to the government. It's no big deal. Press 1 end. Moreover, Chen Jingji went to Tokyo to collect money, with the intention of ransoming Jin Lian and marrying him. Not wanting to walk halfway, he bumped into his family member Chen Ding coming from Tokyo and told him that my father was seriously ill. Grandma asked me to invite my uncle to go home and take care of the funeral arrangements. When Jingji heard what he said, he did the same thing every time. Cheng, walking on the road. One day he went to his uncle Zhang Shilian's house in Tokyo. Zhang Shilian is dead, and only the girl is here. His father Chen Hong has been dead for 3 days, and the whole family is mourning him. Jingji saw his father's spiritual throne, kowed out to his mother Zhang and the girl. When Mrs. Zhang saw that he was an adult, mother and son were crying together and discussed together. Now one is happy and the other is worried. Jingji asked, "How is happiness and how is sorrow?" Mrs. Zhang said, "The happy one is, now the imperial court has established the East Palace, and there is a general amnesty in the suburbs. You do not want your father to die of illness here. Your uncle is gone, and the girl is a widow. It is not normal to live here. Now I have to send your father's coffin back with you and bury it in the village well." Good thing. After Jingji heard this, he thought to himself, "This time, it will take a lot of time to load the coffin into the car, but it won't miss sixth sister. Why don't we get 2 cars of soft boxes first? It won't be too late to go home and pick up the coffin after marrying the 6th sister." He said to Mrs. Zhang, "It's very difficult for thieves to leave with the coffin. I'd rather delay than make a mistake. I'll take 2 cars of soft boxes to the house and clean up the house. Then my mother will go home with Shending, his family, and his father's coffin on the first day of the new year, and they will leave it at a temple outside the city, and then they will fast and chant scriptures. It's not too late to build a tomb and bury her." The Zhang family is a woman. When they disagree, they listen to Jingji's wise words, so they first pack some soft boxes and cages, load them with 2 large carts, put flags on them, and pretend to be incense carts. He got up from Tokyo on the first day of the 12th lunar month, and within a few days, he arrived at the door of his house in King County, Shandong Province. He said to his uncle Zhang Tuanlian, "My father is dead, and my mother is escorting the hearse. It will arrive soon. I escorted 2 cars of luggage. I will come first." Cleaning up the house, his uncle heard that. In that case, I'll just move back home. At the same time, he asked his family to move and vacate the house. When Jingji saw his uncle moving in, he was filled with joy and said, "Now that we have got rid of our enemies, I can marry my 6th sister and live in my home. My father is dead, and my mother loves me. I'll divorce that prostitute first." And then with a piece of paper, my mother-in-law was sued to the government, and she asked me to deposit my things. Who dared to say no? He also threatened my family and sent them to the army. That's right. This is how people are, and it is not the way of heaven. This Jingji had 100 taels of silver in his waist, and another 10 taels of silver in his sleeve to thank Wang Po, and came to the head of Wang Po's house on Zishi Street. But suddenly something went wrong, and I saw 2 corpses buried on the street in front of the door. 2 guns were crossed with a lantern on them. She and Wang Po ordered that if someone captures the person who is the first to file a lawsuit, the official will reward him with 50 taels of silver. Jingji raised his head and opened his eyes when he saw it. I saw 2 people standing out of the hut, shouting, "Who are you? What do you think this article is about? Seeing that the murderer can't be caught now, who are you?" Dakabu came to capture him. Jingji ran around in a panic and just walked to the restaurant under the stone bridge. He saw a man wearing a swastika and a green jacket. He then rushed under the bridge and said, "Brother, you are so bold. You are here for nothing. What do you think of him?" When Jingji turned around, he saw a familiar friend, Iron Nail Young Erlang. The 2 of them shouted. Young Er said, "Brother has never been seen. Where is he coming from?" Jingji then told the story of his father's death in Tokyo and his return. "The woman who killed her was my father-in-law's son, Pan. I don't know if he was killed by someone else. Killed, only when I saw the notice did I know the reason." Young Erlang told him, "He is my brother-in-law Wu Song. There is also a girl in his family who has been living in my uncle Yao Erlang's house for 3 or 4 years. Yesterday, his uncle killed someone and disappeared. My uncle took the girl out of the county and married him. Seeing that these 2 corpses have only been buried for a long time, they have only suffered from the local security guards, and I don't know when the murderer Wu Song was captured." After saying this, Young Erlang invited Jingji and went to the restaurant to drink. Whisk! When Jingji saw that the woman was dead, he couldn't bear the pain in his heart. He could eat and drink there. After about 3 drinks, he got up and went downstairs to say goodbye. In the evening, I bought a lot of money paper and called the woman by the stone bridge far away from Wang Po's door on Zishi Street. "Sister Pan 6, my little brother Chen Jingji, I will burn money paper for you today. It's all because I came a step too late and missed your life. You were a human in life, and a god in death. I would have captured your enemy Wu Song and avenged him while I watched him in the execution ground, Kai." After saying that, he cried and burned the money paper. Jingji went home and closed the door. Walking back to the room, he just fell asleep, seemingly unable to sleep, and dreamed that Jin Lian was wearing plain clothes and covered in blood, crying to Jingji, "My brother, I died in such a painful way. I really hope to get along with you. In one place, I didn't expect you to come, and I was killed by Wu Song. Now that the underworld has refused to accept me, I wandered around during the day and returned to look for water at night. In the meantime, you gave me a piece of money and paper, but the enemy has not been found. My body is buried in the street. You can remember the old feelings and buy a coffin to bury it so that it will not be exposed for a long time." Jingji cried, "My sister, did I know that I wanted to bury you? But I'm afraid that my unkind mother-in-law knows that she only relies on me and takes advantage of him. Sister, you must go to the garrison and tell Chunmai to bury your body." Humanity said, "I just entered the garrison and was blocked by the Kobe captain. I need to beg him again slowly." Jingji cried and tried to pull him to talk, but was stopped by the smell of blood on his body. He struggled to break away, but it was a dream. While listening to the drum watch on the pillow, it was 3 o'clock in the morning, and he said, "It's strange. I just dreamed clearly that Sixth Sister told me her heartfelt words and taught me the meaning of burial. I don't know what year and what day she was holding Wusong. It's so sad and touching. Exactly, in the dream, I was filled with an endless sadness. I sat alone in an empty room and cried until dawn. Press 1 end. I visited Na Wusong in Quebiao County for more than 2 months, but could not capture him. It was known that he fled to Liangshan and was a thief. The local Baoji Alinyu reported to the official that all 2 corpses were there, and the family members were accordingly ordered to bury them. Wang Po's body was buried with his son Wang Chaoling. There was only a woman's body, but no one came to collect it. But he said that Chen Mai in the mansion was coming every 2 or 3 days. So Zhang Shang and Lian came to the county to inquire. When I got back, I only said that the murderer had not been captured yet. The body was still buried, and the place was under guard, but no one dared to touch it. Just before the Chinese New Year, in the first 10 days of the first lunar month, suddenly one night, Chen Mai had a dream. In a trance, I dreamed that the golden lotus clouds were fluffy and covered with blood. And she shouted, "Sister Pang Pang, my good sister, it is so painful for slaves to die. All the slaves' corpses have been exposed in the street for a long time, exposed to wind and rain. There is no one to bury him. He has no relatives. If you remember the old love between mother and son, buy a coffin and bury him in a different place. After that, he will cry loudly." Chen Mai grabbed him and wanted to ask him something else, but he broke away and raised her hand to realize that it was Nang Qiameng. I woke up crying from my sleep, feeling uncertain in my heart. The next day, Zhang Sheng and Lian were called in and asked you to go to the county to find out if there are any bodies of the buried women. Zhang Sheng and Lian agreed to go. Not long after, he came to report the culprit has escaped. All the corpses were taken care of by local guards. As it became inconvenient for a long time, the family members of each family were ordered to bury the body. The body of the woman was taken away by his son. Then no one came to pick her up, so she was still buried in the middle of the street. Chen Mai said, "In that case, if you two can do this for me, I will reward you generously." The 2 of them knelt down and said, "What are you talking about? Young lady, if you are willing to praise a villain in front of the master, you will not be able to bear it. Even if you go to the soup and dive, how dare you say not to go?" Chen Mai walked to the room and took out 10 taels of silver and 2 large pieces of cloth, entrusted the 2 men and said, "This dead woman is one of my biological sisters. She was married to Simon King's family. She came out today and was killed. You two can't teach your master how to use this money to buy me a body. Put him in the coffin, carry him out of the city, and bury him in a convenient place. I will reward you generously." The 2 said, "It doesn't matter. I will go." Lian said, "I'm afraid the county won't teach you or me. What's wrong with collecting the body? You need to give me a message from the master, so I can contact the county magistrate." Zhang Sheng said, "I just said that the young lady is his sister, and she is marrying in the house. The county magistrate dare not refuse. So why bother to accept the message?" After getting the money, he came to the classroom. Zhang Sheng then said to Lian, "I think the dead woman and the young lady once lived together at Simon King's house and got along well. Today, I am so worried about him. I cried when I thought about her death. On the 3rd and 4th day, I didn't eat, so the master called Tao Baxi to watch. He didn't like it. Today, he has no relatives to take him. How can I not bury him for him? If this is done, sooner or later he will be in front of the master. Just for your convenience, and it will be a bit of luck. Seeing that the master is obedient, listen to what he says. And the eldest grandma and second grandma will stay behind." After that, the 2 of them took it. Yinzi went to the county to hand over the certificate and said that his sister was at the master's house and came to collect the body. He spent 6 taels of silver to put together a coffin, dug out the woman's body, stuffed the heart and liver into the belly, sewed it up with thread, wrapped it with cloth, and put it into the material. Zhang Sheng said, "Let's bury it in the Yangfu Temple of the Master Incense Courtyard. There is free space there." He called to companions and carried them to Yangfu Temple. He said to the elder, "This is the sister of the young lady in the house. She wants a piece of land. Bury him." The elder did not dare to neglect, so he buried him under a hollow poplar tree behind the temple. After finishing, he came to the house and Hua Chen Mai said, "Besides buying a coffin for burial, I still have 4 taels of silver left." The delivery was clear. Chen Mai paid. If there is a lot of motivation, you two will take these 4 taels of silver and give 2 taels to the elder Daojian. Teach him to recite some sutras and repent for him in the morning and evening, and save him and ascend to heaven. He also took out a large jar of wine, 1 leg of pork, 1 leg of mutton, for these 2 taels of silver. Each of you will pay for 1 or 2 households. The 2 of them knelt down. Where would they dare to take it? He just said, if the young lady is willing to promote a villain in front of the master, I can't bear it. How dare these small laborers accept silver? Chen Mai said, I reward you, but if you don't accept it, I will be annoyed. The 2 had to count out a lead. Out. The 2 classes were drinking and drinking, and they were very happy to see the little madam. The next day, Zhang Sheng gave some silver to chant sutras with the elders, and Chen Mai gave 5 more silver to buy paper and burn it with golden lotuses. Chen Ding brought the coffin and his family from Tokyo to the outskirts of King County and deposited the coffin in Yangfu Temple, waiting for the chanting of sutras and burial in the tomb. Jingji heard at home that his mother Zhang's family's small vehicle had arrived, and his father's coffin was parked in Yangfu Temple outside the city. After unloading the luggage, he kowtowed to Zhang. Zhang blamed him. Why didn't you go to pick me up? Jingji just said, I felt bad, and there was no one to take care of the house. Zhang asked, why didn't your uncle go? Jingji said, when he saw his mother coming, he hurriedly moved back home. Zhang said, let your uncle live there. Why did he move away in a hurry? At the same time, his maternal uncle Zhang Tuanlian came to see his sister. The sisters hugged their heads and cried, and they talked about it with wine, so there is no need to go into details. The next day, Zhang asked Jingji to take 5 taels of silver and a few pieces of gold, silver, money, paper to the elders outside the door to chant sutras for his father. While riding on the Tuku Street, he suddenly ran into his 2 friends Lu Daling and Ong Daling, who bowed their heads and said hello. The 2 asked, where are you going, brother? Jingji answered, my father's coffin is in the temple outside the gate. Tomorrow, the 20th, is the 7th day after the death. My mother asked me to send money to the elders to have a vegetarian feast and chant sutras. The 2 said, brother, I didn't know that the old man's coffin had arrived. I missed your condolences. So they asked, when will the coffin be buried? Jingji said, it will only take 1 or 2 days. After chanting sutras, the burial will be in the tomb. After that, the 2 waved their hands and said goodbye. Jingji stopped young Daling again and asked, why is the body of Pan, my father-in-law's son, missing in the county? Who took it away? Young Daling said, half a month ago, the local authorities could not catch Wu Song, so they reported to the county magistrate and ordered each family to take it away for burial. Wang Po was taken away by her son. The woman's body had been missing for 3 or 4 days, and the garrison bought a coffin and sent people to carry it out of the city to Yangfu Temple for burial. Jingji heard this and knew that Chen Mai had buried his body in the mansion. He asked Erlang, how many Yangfu temples are there outside the city? Erlang said, there is only 1 Yangfu temple outside the south gate, which is the incense temple of Master Zhou. How many Yangfu temples are there? Jingji was delighted when he heard this. It is this Yangfu temple. It is also a coincidence that my 6th sister is also buried here. He said goodbye to the 2 and went out of the city from the first gate and went straight to Yangfu Temple. When he met the elder, he asked the elder, there is a woman who was recently buried in the garrison. Where is she? The elder said, she is under the poplar tree behind the temple. It is said that she is the sister of the young lady in the house. Chen Jingji did not even visit his father's coffin. He first took money and offered sacrifices. He went to Jinlian's grave and offered sacrifices with her. He burned money and paper and cried, my 6th sister, your brother Chen Jingji is here to burn a piece of paper money for you. You can live well and use money for hardship. After the sacrifice, he went to the abbot's room to burn paper and offer sacrifices in front of his father's coffin. He handed the money to the elder and told him to invite 8 monks to chant 7 sutras on the 20th. The elder took the sutra and prepared a vegetarian meal. Jingji returned home and replied to Zhang's words. On the 20th, everyone went to the temple to burn incense, choose an auspicious day to start the funeral, and return his father's coffin to the ancestral tomb. After the burial, The mother and son came home to spend the day. But Wu Yunyang, one day in early February, the weather was mild. Meng Yulu, Sun Zue, Simon Daji, and Xiao Yu came out to stand at the gate, watching the passing cars and horses, and the bustling people. Suddenly, they saw a group of men and women, followed by a monk, who was very fat, with 3 bronze Buddhas on his head, several lanterns on his body, and apricot yellow cassocks with wine-blown sleeves, walking barefoot in the mud up to his ankles. At that time, the ancients had a few words to praise the merits of this wandering monk: meditate and study Zen, preach the sutras, with a frown and a bitter look. He has learned the family style of the Buddha, relying on the teachings to beg for food. He has established the rules of the Dharma. In the daytime, he sells sticks and rings bells, and in the night, he dances with guns and clubs. Sometimes he goes at the door, and when he is hungry, he fights in the street. Emptiness, color, emptiness. Who has seen sentient beings leave the earth, coming and going? How can they be led to the west? The monk saw Yunang and other women at the door, so he went forward to greet them, and said, "Lay Bodhisattva donors, since they were born in deep houses and large courtyards. They are all people of Longhua. I came from Mount Wadai, and I made good connections and built the merits of the 10 kings and the 3 treasures Buddha Hall. I rely on the donors of the 10 directions, Bodhisattvas, to plant a wide field of blessings, and to donate money to achieve great things and plant merits in the next life. I am just a porter." After hearing his words, Yunang called Xiao Yu to the room to give a monk's hat, a pair of monk's shoes, a string of copper coins, and a bucket of white rice. It turned out that Yunang always liked to give alms to monks, and often made monks' hats and monks' shoes to prepare for donation. When Xiao Yu was taken out, Yunang instructed her, "Tell the monk to come over and give him alms." Xiao Yu pretended to be coquettish and shouted, "That monk who turned into a donkey can come over. My grandmother gave you so many things, but you still don't kowtow." Yunang scolded her, "You little stinky meat. You blame yourself for sinning. He is a monk and a disciple of Buddhism. You are not important. But why do you slander him? If you don't behave like a monk, you little whore, I don't know how many sins you will commit tomorrow." Xiao Yu laughed and said, "Grandma, this thief monk, why did he look at me with his thief eyes when I called him?" The monk took the money for shoes and hats with both hands, greeted him, and said, "Thank you, old Bodhisattva, for the alms." Xiao Yu said, "This bald guy is so rude. These people are standing here, but he only greeted me twice and didn't greet me." "A child," Yunang said, "little meat." He also said that he was the son of a Buddhist. It was the daughter of the Buddha, who was the son. In Law of the Buddha, Yunang couldn't help laughing and scolded, "This thief, the little prostitute, also learned the mouth of the mouth, and said that he went to Xiao Yu. Tao, if he spends me, I will go," said. The women laughed. Yunang drank, "You little prostitute," who dedicated the monk to slander the Buddha. The monk got the giving, and went away with the 3 Buddhas. Xiao Yu said, "Grandma was still angry with me for scolding him. Look at this thief bald. He even looked at me before he left." There is a poem that talks about the benefits of Yunang's charity and giving to monks. After years of being a widow, I have been reading scriptures, and I have been away from the evil and empty desires for a long time. My body is like the moon in the sky, and I will not allow any floating clouds to invade it. Yunang and the others were talking at the door, when they suddenly saw Sister Zhu coming from the street with a flower box. Seeing Yunang, the others said hello. Yunang asked, "Where are you going? Why don't you come to visit me?" Mrs. Zhu said, "I don't know what I've been busy with all day. These past 2 days, the family of old man Zhang, the judge in charge of the street, has been organizing a marriage between his son and the family of eunuch Zhu in the north. He has married his niece, and it was also the marriage that Mrs. Wen and I discussed. Yesterday, there was a big banquet. I was so busy that I didn't even go to see my eldest sister in the garrison. I don't know why she is so angry with me." Yunang asked, "Where are you going now?" Mrs. Zhu said, "I have something to tell you." Yunang said, "Come in if you have something to say." At the same time, she asked Mrs. Zhu to sit in the upper room at the back and have some tea. Mrs. Zhu said, "You don't know yet. Your relative Chen died of illness in Tokyo last year. Your mother-in-law asked your brother-in-law to move the coffins of the old and the young. Since he came home in the first month of the year, he has been sent off with sutures and buried in the grave. I heard that you know about it. Why don't you go and burn a piece of paper and visit him? Yu Niang said. If you don't tell me, how would I know? No one would ask. I only know that Pan's brother-in-law killed him and buried him with Wang Po, but I don't know what happened to him now, Mrs. Zhu said. Since ancient times, there has been a place to be born and a place to die. If Wu Niang hadn't left because of those things, it would be difficult for her to come. She didn't do her duty and did ugly things. If she had left, how could her brother-in-law have killed her if she was in our house? After all, every wrong has its perpetrator and every debt has its creditor. Fortunately, our eldest sister Chun Mai couldn't get over the women's love affair, so she sent someone to buy a coffin, took his body and buried it. Otherwise, it would have been exposed and could not be taken. Brother-in-law, who's going to take care of him? Sun Zue said. How long has Chun Mai been in the garrison? She's grown up like this. She took out the silver and bought a coffin for him to bury him, but the garrison didn't get angry. What does he think of him? Zhu's wife said. Yeah, you don't know. The garrison doesn't like him at all. He just sleeps in his room every day and obeys him every time he says something. Once he married him, he saw that he was good-looking and smart, so he gave him 3 rooms in the West Wing and assigned a maid to serve him. The master stayed in his room for 3 nights in a row, cut 4 seasons of clothes for him and put them on his head. He had a drink for 3 days and rewarded me with 1 tael of silver and a piece of cloth. His eldest grandmother is 50 years old. Her eyes are blurry. She eats vegetarian food and doesn't take care of things. Sun Erniang in the East Wing gave birth to a daughter, and although she is the head of the family, she has a child. Now he holds the keys to the big and small warehouses, and the garrison doesn't listen to him. Let's talk about the silver. Can't you take it out? After a few words, Yu Niang and Zue were speechless. After sitting for a while, Sister Zhu stood up. Yu Niang said, "Come tomorrow. I will prepare a sacrificial table, a piece of cloth, and some paper money. You can take the eldest sister and her father-in-law to burn the paper." Sister Zhu said, "Are you not going?" Yu Niang said, "Just tell me that I feel bad and go to my in-laws another day." Sister Zhu agreed. "Tell the eldest sister to pack up and wait for me. I will come after dinner." Yu Niang said, "Where are you going now? It's better not to go to the garrison." Sister Zhu said, "If I don't go, he will be very angry. He has asked the servant to call me several times." Yu Niang said, "What did he ask you to do?" Sister Zhu said, "Grandma, you don't know? He is now 4 or 5 months pregnant. The master is very happy and asked me to go. He has already rewarded me." She took the flower box and said goodbye. Zue said, "What the old horse said is nonsense. He was sold to the garrison commander not long ago, and he already has a child. The garrison commander has several wives round him. Don't you want to promote him? This is too much." Yu Niang said, "He also has a mistress named Zheng Jing, and there is a woman who gave birth to a young lady in her room." Zue said, "You come again." It's still the matchmaker's words, and a foot of water can cause 10 feet of waves. It was not because of Zue's words today that it was like the hook and line fell from the sky, and it brought troubles on the spot. There is a poem to prove it. I remember serving the master in those days. Who knew that I would become so beautiful today? Everything in the world is predetermined. Don't laugh at the busyness of life.
Alright, this part of the story ends here.
Want to know what happened next? Let's listen to the breakdown next time.